My beloved child, what you are hearing at this very moment is not random, not coincidence, and not simply another message passing through your day. According to Archangel Michael, multiple attempts were made to reach you today on January 15th, and this message arrives because those attempts were not acknowledged in the way heaven intended. There are moments in life when the spiritual realm leans closer, when urgency replaces patience, and when silence is no longer permitted. This is one of those moments. The title of this message is not symbolic language. It is a direct reflection of a spiritual event unfolding around you right now. A window has been opened, and that window does not remain open indefinitely. January 15th is marked as a threshold day, a point of decision in divine timing. In the unseen realm, time does not move casually. Certain days carry weight, assignment markers, and decision seals. Today was one of those days for you. Archangel Michael does not intervene lightly. He is not dispatched for routine encouragements or gentle reminders. He is sent when protection, order, and urgency converge. The fact that multiple attempts were made indicates that what is attached to you carries consequence, impact, and responsibility beyond your personal life. This was not merely about your comfort. It was about alignment. You may be wondering what those attempts looked like. They did not always arrive as a loud voice or a visible sign. Some came as interruptions you dismissed. Some came as thoughts you pushed aside. Some came through a feeling you could not explain, a restlessness, a sense that something required your attention but you did not know what. Heaven often reaches before it reveals. That is mercy. But when repeated attempts are ignored or delayed, the tone shifts, not into punishment, but into warning. And this is where you are now. The phrase "last window" is not meant to frighten you, but it is meant to awaken you. Windows in the spiritual realm represent periods of authorized movement. They are moments when access is granted, when alignment is possible without resistance, and when obedience produces acceleration. When a window closes, the destination may still exist, but the route changes. Effort increases, timing stretches, and sometimes assignments are reassigned, not because you were rejected, but because divine order must continue moving forward. Heaven does not stop because one person hesitates. Archangel Michael reports this because he stands as the enforcer of divine order. His role is to guard what matters, protect what is assigned, and ensure that what has been authorized is carried out. If he is speaking now, it is because delay has reached its limit. There was a time earlier today when a softer response would have sufficed. That time has passed. His message is the escalation, not to condemn you, but to reach you before a shift occurs that cannot be reversed in the same way. You were not overlooked. You were not forgotten. The attempts themselves prove that you were prioritized. Heaven does not chase what holds no value. Repeated contact is reserved for those whose alignment affects more than themselves. There is something connected to you that requires courage, decisiveness, and trust. And that is why this moment feels heavy. Weight is not always burden. Sometimes it is importance pressing in. The urgency you feel now is not anxiety. It is recognition. Something in your spirit already knows that this message matters. That is why you are still listening. That is why you did not scroll past. That is why this moment feels different from others. When divine timing converges with human awareness, there is a pause in the noise, a narrowing of focus, and a sense that something must be addressed now, not later. Open this now is not a demand for curiosity. It is an instruction for alignment. To open is to acknowledge. To open is to respond. To open is to step into awareness instead of avoidance. Heaven honors free will, but it also honors responsibility. And right now, you are standing between what was attempted earlier today and what may be reassigned if this window closes without response. This part of the message exists to ground you in context, not to overwhelm you, but to make one thing unmistakably clear. This is not a general message sent to everyone. It is precise, it is timely, and it is connected to you. Archangel Michael's involvement signals that protection is present, but protection does not cancel decision. It surrounds it. You are being given clarity before consequence, awareness before adjustment, and opportunity before redirection. As this message continues, you will begin to understand what was trying to reach you, why today mattered, and what responding now can still restore. But first, you must recognize the seriousness of this moment. The door is still open. The window has not yet closed, but heaven has stopped knocking softly. This is the context. This is the urgency. And this is why what comes next matters more than you realize. Heaven does not repeat itself without reason. When attempts are made again and again, it is not because the message was unclear. It is because the timing was critical. Today, those attempts followed a pattern, and that pattern reveals something important about you. The spiritual realm does not waste motion. Every nudge, every interruption, every unexplained pause you experienced was deliberate, coordinated, and purposeful. Nothing was random. Nothing was accidental. And certainly nothing was meaningless. You may have noticed moments today that felt slightly off. Perhaps your attention was pulled away from something unexpectedly. Perhaps a plan stalled, a conversation lingered in your mind, or a sudden quiet pressed in where noise usually lived. These are not dramatic signs, but they are precise. Heaven often speaks in disruptions before it speaks in declarations. That is because disruptions test awareness. They reveal whether someone is receptive or resistant, attentive or distracted, willing or postponing. And today, heaven kept knocking because your response mattered now, not tomorrow. Repeated attempts are never about pressure. They are about priority. When something carries destiny weight, patience gives way to persistence. Think of it this way. If a message had no consequence, it could wait. If a calling had no impact, it could be delayed. But when an assignment is time-sensitive, heaven escalates communication. That escalation is what you felt today. It may have come as a thought you could not shake, a sense of urgency without explanation, or even a mild frustration that had no clear source. These were not emotions spiraling out of control. They were signals seeking alignment. The reason these attempts intensified is because windows close quietly. There is rarely an alarm when divine timing shifts. Most people realize too late that something passed them by, not because it disappeared, but because it moved forward without them. Heaven, in mercy, sends warnings before that happens. Archangel Michael's report of multiple attempts is not an accusation. It is evidence of care. It shows that you were given opportunity, awareness, and room to respond. Many never receive that courtesy. You might ask why the attempts were subtle instead of overwhelming. The answer is simple. Free will must remain intact. Heaven does not force obedience. It invites discernment. Subtlety reveals readiness. If someone responds to a whisper, they can be trusted with a command. If someone notices a nudge, they are capable of handling responsibility. Today's attempts were testing your attentiveness, not your worthiness. And the fact that you are listening now indicates that something in you recognized the pattern, even if you did not understand it at the time. There is another reason heaven kept knocking. Resistance was expected. When an assignment carries weight, opposition often disguises itself as distraction, fatigue, or rationalization. You may have told yourself you would deal with it later, that it was not urgent, that now was not the right time. These thoughts do not make you weak, they make you human. But heaven responds to hesitation with clarity. That is why this message is now unmistakable. Ambiguity has ended. What was once subtle is now direct. Repetition also reveals value. Heaven does not pursue what it plans to abandon. The persistence you experience today means that what is connected to you has not been withdrawn yet. The window is narrowing, yes, but it is still open. That is why this message exists. Not to shame you for earlier moments of delay, but to bring you fully into awareness before movement occurs without your consent. Divine order continues whether people respond or not. The difference lies in whether you move with it or watch it pass. As you listen, allow yourself to reflect honestly. How many moments today asked for your attention? How many times did something feel unfinished, unresolved, or gently urgent? These were not coincidences lining up. They were confirmations stacking up. Heaven speaks through repetition because repetition breaks through denial. It forces acknowledgement, and acknowledgement is the first step toward alignment. This is also the moment where response becomes public, not hidden. When you choose to engage with a message like this, you are not just consuming information, you are declaring awareness. That is why interaction matters. If this message resonates with you, if it mirrors what you experience today, then respond in a tangible way. Like this message, not as a routine action, but as a signal that you are present. Share it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads. Comment something simple that declares your awareness. And if you have not yet subscribed, do so, not for a channel, but as a marker that you are choosing alignment over delay. These actions are not about algorithms, they are about acknowledgement. Heaven notices response. Movement follows movement. When you step forward, even slightly, clarity increases. Protection strengthens. Direction sharpens. The knocking you experienced today was not meant to exhaust you. It was meant to wake you. And now that you are awake, what comes next will begin to make sense. This part of the message exists to show you that today was not chaotic. It was coordinated. The attempts were not failures. They were invitations. And the persistence was not impatience. It was urgency rooted in purpose. What heaven has been trying to reach you about did not disappear when you hesitated, but waited. But it will not wait indefinitely. The knocking has now become a voice. And in the next part, you will begin to understand what that voice was protecting and why you were the one chosen to hear it. The reason heaven attempted to reach you repeatedly today is not because you were drifting. It is because you were entrusted. There is a hidden assignment connected to your life, and it has remained guarded precisely because of its significance. Not all assignments are announced loudly. The most impactful ones are often concealed until the person carrying them is ready to understand their weight. What was reaching for your attention today was not information. It was responsibility. This assignment is not ordinary. It is not something given to everyone, and it is not interchangeable without consequence. That is why protection surrounded it long before explanation ever arrived. When heaven entrusts something that affects others, it first shields the carrier. Delays, detours, and even confusion can be forms of protection when the timing is not yet right. You may have wondered why certain things in your life stalled, why clarity seemed postponed, or why doors did not open as quickly as you expected. It was not denial, it was guarding. You were chosen not because you are perfect, but because you are positioned. There is a difference. Positioning has nothing to do with flawlessness and everything to do with placement. Your experiences, your resilience, your sensitivity, and even your struggles have aligned you uniquely for this assignment. Heaven does not select randomly. It selects precisely. And when an assignment requires strength, discernment, and endurance, Archangel Michael's presence becomes necessary. He does not guard trivial matters. He guards what carries impact. This assignment involves influence, whether you recognize it yet or not. Influence does not always look like visibility. Sometimes it looks like presence at the right moment, words spoken when someone else is silent, or obedience that shifts outcomes quietly. The reason this assignment remained hidden is because premature exposure would have attracted resistance before you were fortified. Protection always comes before revelation. That is divine order. You may feel unqualified when you hear this, and that response is more telling than you realize. Those who are truly chosen often question themselves first. Confidence without humility cannot carry weight. The hesitation you felt today was not disqualification. It was awareness brushing against responsibility. Heaven allows that tension because it produces seriousness. This is not an assignment to be taken lightly, rushed into, or handled casually. It requires readiness, not perfection. Archangel Michael's involvement signals that this assignment intersects with opposition. Not dramatic confrontation, but subtle resistance that attempts to distract, delay, or divert. That is why today mattered so much. The window that is closing does not erase the assignment. It alters how it manifests. When alignment happens within the window, movement is smoother. When it happens after, the path becomes heavier. Heaven warned you because mercy prefers ease over strain. There is also a reason not everyone hears messages like this. Some are not meant to. Awareness is given to those who can respond responsibly. You were not pulled into this message by chance. Something in you recognized it. Something in you understood, even before words explained it. That recognition is part of the assignment itself. You are meant to notice what others overlook. You are meant to respond when others hesitate. As this truth settles, you may begin to recall moments in your life when you were placed in situations that felt purposeful but unexplained. Times when you were protected from outcomes you did not yet understand. Moments when your presence mattered more than your action. These were not isolated events. They were training. Heaven prepares quietly before it assigns openly. Now hear this clearly. This assignment has not been revoked, but it has reached a point where acknowledgement is required. Hidden does not mean dormant forever. There comes a moment when protection must give way to participation. Today was that moment. That is why the attempts intensified. Heaven was not trying to alarm you. It was trying to involve you. What you do with this awareness matters. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Awareness without response becomes weight. Response brings relief. And relief clears the way for what comes next. You are not being asked to understand everything at once. You are being asked to say yes to alignment. Clarity follows obedience, not the other way around. As you move forward into the next part of this message, understand this. What has been hidden will begin to surface, but only as you are ready to carry it. Protection remains. Guidance remains. You are not alone in this, but you are required. Hold this truth with you as we continue, because what is about to be revealed next explains why timing matters more than intention, and why staying present right now changes everything. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Type "I accept the call" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 819 is now activated. This message is reaching you because light is meant to travel farther than one voice. As you step into awareness, you are also being invited to help others awaken to theirs. I feel led to tell you this clearly. When you give in this moment, you are not supporting a channel. You are sowing into souls who are still waiting for their own wake-up call. Scripture declares that God gives seed to the sower, and right now, He is speaking that promise directly to you. This assignment does not move forward alone. It multiplies through obedience. If your spirit feels stirred, act on it now. Release your seed through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal. The link and QR code are already waiting for you in the description. Do it now, and let heaven mark your obedience with increase. In the spiritual realm, reassignment is not punishment, rejection, or loss of worth. It is movement. It is adjustment. It is divine order continuing forward when timing is not met. Heaven does not operate emotionally. It operates purposefully. And when a window closes, heaven does not stop. It redirects. Understanding this truth removes fear and replaces it with sober awareness. Reassignment occurs when an assignment tied to a specific time, alignment, or readiness cannot wait indefinitely. Divine plans are living, active, and coordinated. They involve people, moments, and intersections that must align together. When one element delays beyond a certain point, the plan adapts so that the outcome is not compromised. This does not mean the original person is discarded. It means the expression of the assignment changes. Sometimes it becomes smaller. Sometimes it becomes harder. Sometimes it becomes delayed. And sometimes it is carried by someone else entirely while the original person moves on to a different path. This is why the phrase last window matters so deeply. Windows are mercy periods. They are extensions of grace where heaven says, there is still time to align without loss. When that window closes, heaven does not become angry. It becomes efficient. Reassignment ensures that what must be accomplished still happens. Divine will is never canceled, only rerouted. The question is not whether the assignment survives, but whether you remain positioned within it. Many people assume reassignment means failure. That assumption is incorrect. Reassignment often happens because someone is capable but not responsive within the required time frame. Heaven values willingness as much as ability. Readiness is not about talent. It is about response. When response lags, heaven adjusts. This is not to shame the individual, but to honor the urgency of the purpose itself. The mission always outweighs personal hesitation. You may feel the emotional weight of this truth now, and that weight is appropriate. It is not meant to crush you, but to ground you. Reassignment carries consequences not because heaven is harsh, but because timing is sacred. There are seasons when grace allows delay, and seasons when movement is required. January 15th marked the edge of one such season. That is why Archangel Michael's warning carried firmness. He stands at thresholds. He does not threaten, he informs. Reassignment can look subtle in real life. It may appear as missed opportunities that no longer return in the same form. It may show up as doors opening for others that once felt meant for you. It may feel like momentum shifting just out of reach. These are not signs of abandonment. They are signs of redirection. And redirection always carries loss of ease. What once flowed now requires effort. What once aligned now demands striving. This is not to punish, but to preserve order. Heaven would rather warn than reassign. That is the truth many overlook. Warnings are mercy. They are invitations to realign before adjustment becomes necessary. This message itself is proof that reassignment has not yet been finalized. If it were, there would be silence instead of urgency. Heaven speaks when change is still possible. Silence comes after movement has already occurred. There is also a deeper truth here. Reassignment does not only affect you, it affects those connected to your obedience. Assignments are rarely isolated. They ripple outward. When someone delays, others wait. When someone responds, others are released. This is why timing matters beyond personal comfort. Your alignment influences more than your own path. Heaven considers that impact carefully before adjusting anything. It is important to understand that reassignment does not remove your value or identity. Who you are remains intact. What changes is how and when certain purposes are expressed. Some assignments are time-bound and cannot be recovered once missed. Others return later in altered form. The difference depends on responsiveness. Heaven measures response more than intention. Good intentions without action still result in adjustment. If you are feeling a sense of urgency now, that is not fear, it is clarity. Fear pushes you to panic. Clarity pulls you to decide. Heaven is not asking you to rush blindly. It is asking you to respond consciously. Reassignment is not inevitable, but it is imminent when awareness is ignored. That is why this part of the message exists, to remove confusion so you can choose with understanding. Archangel Michael's role in this moment is not to intimidate you, but to stabilize the threshold. He stands between what was attempted and what may change. His presence signals that the matter is serious but not hopeless. There is still room to align. There is still space to respond. But that space is narrowing, not because heaven is impatient, but because the season itself is shifting. As we move forward, you will begin to see how reassignment unfolds in real time and what responding now can still preserve. This is not about fear of loss. It is about awareness of timing. Heaven has made itself clear. What happens next depends on response. Why January 15th? Why this day, and why did everything seem to converge within it? In the spiritual realm, dates are not arbitrary markers on a calendar. Certain days function as threshold, the points where cycles close, permissions shift, and momentum transfers. January 15th was one of those days for you. It carried weight not because of superstition, but because of alignment between divine timing and human readiness. Threshold days act like hinges. They connect what has been to what is about to be. They are moments when past preparation meets future action. What makes them powerful is not the day itself, but what heaven has scheduled within it. Assignments, decisions, and authorizations are often attached to specific windows because timing governs effectiveness. A seed planted too early or too late struggles to grow, even if the soil is good. January 15th marked a moment when conditions aligned for movement, clarity, and transition. This is why the urgency intensified on that specific day. Heaven was not reacting to your actions alone. It was responding to the calendar of purpose already in motion. You were approaching the end of a grace window that had been open longer than you realized. That window allowed space for growth, maturity, and readiness. But grace windows are not endless. They exist to prepare, not to postpone indefinitely. January 15th represented the moment when preparation met expectation. Thresholds often feel heavy because they demand decision. You may have sensed pressure without understanding its source. You may have felt pulled in opposing directions, rest and movement, hesitation and resolve. That tension is common on threshold days. It is the feeling of standing between seasons. One season is concluding, and another is requesting entry. The discomfort comes from remaining still when movement is required. What makes January 15th significant is that it was not just a personal date. It was a convergence point. Other people, circumstances, and outcomes were aligned to move with or without your participation. This is why heaven attempted to reach you multiple times within that same day. It was not coincidence, it was coordination. When multiple elements are set to shift, heaven seeks to align all willing participants before the moment passes. Threshold days do not announce themselves loudly. They often appear ordinary on the surface, but beneath that ordinariness is a quiet urgency. Missed thresholds are rarely recognized in the moment. They are understood in hindsight. Heaven, in mercy, sent awareness before hindsight could turn into regret. This message exists because January 15th was not meant to pass unnoticed. There is also a reason thresholds feel final. Once crossed, they do not reset easily. The next opportunity rarely looks the same. It may come later, but it carries different requirements, different resistance, and different outcomes. That does not mean all is lost, but it does mean these may be replaced by effort. Heaven prefers alignment within the threshold because it preserves flow. January 15th also represents accountability. Not condemnation, but responsibility. When awareness is given, response is expected. This is why the tone of the message shifted from gentle nudging to direct clarity. Heaven speaks softly during preparation, but it speaks clearly at thresholds. Ambiguity ends where decision begins. What was once optional becomes necessary. You may wonder if responding after January 15th still matters. It does, but differently. Response after a threshold restores alignment, but it may not restore timing. A distinction is important. Heaven can redeem many things, but redeem paths often involve greater endurance. This is why awareness before the threshold closes is such a gift. It allows you to choose alignment without unnecessary struggle. Another reason this date mattered is because thresholds expose priorities. When time compresses, what matters rises to the surface. Distractions lose their appeal. Excuses lose their power. What remains is truth. January 15th pressed truth into your awareness. He revealed what you have been postponing, avoiding, or undervaluing. Not to accuse you, but to clarify what needs attention. Thresholds are also moments of sealing. Decisions made near them carry amplified impact. A small yes can unlock large movement. A small delay can redirect momentum. This is why heaven watches closely at these points. Not to judge, but to align outcomes with response. Your awareness now means the threshold is still relevant. The door is not slammed shut, but it is no longer wide open. As you absorb this, understand that January 15th was not chosen to pressure you. It was chosen to position you. Heaven does not set people up to fail. It sets moments up to reveal readiness. This message is not arriving too late. It is arriving at the edge. And edges are where decisions matter most. In the next part, you will begin to understand why Archangel Michael is the one involved at this exact point, and what his presence reveals about the seriousness and the protection surrounding this moment. This brings us to a deeper understanding of why Archangel Michael is the one involved at this exact moment. His presence is not symbolic, and it is not decorative. Archangel Michael appears in moments where order must be restored, boundaries must be enforced, and decisions can no longer remain undecided. He is not sent for comfort alone. He is sent when heaven's structure is at stake. When Michael steps forward, it means something has reached a point where clarity must replace ambiguity. In the spiritual realm, order is everything. Divine plans move according to alignment, timing, and authority. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian of that order. He ensures that what has been authorized by heaven is carried out without corruption, delay, or distortion. When assignments intersect with resistance, confusion, or hesitation, Michael's role is to stabilize the moment. He does not argue. He establishes. His presence signals that the matter has moved beyond suggestion and into decision. This is why his involvement now is significant. Earlier stages of your journey may have been guided quietly, with gentle direction and internal nudges. That was appropriate for preparation. But preparation has limits. When readiness has been established and timing has matured, heaven requires response. Michael steps in at that junction. He is the line between grace extended and order enforced. Not hardly but firmly. Many misunderstand Michael as only a warrior in times of external conflict. In truth, much of his work involves internal alignment. He confronts hesitation, distraction, and fear not by shaming but by removing confusion. His presence cuts through noise. It sharpens focus. It brings things into their proper place. If you have felt a sudden seriousness, a sense that this moment cannot be treated casually, that is his influence. Not fear, gravity. Archangel Michael is also a protector of high-risk destinies. When an assignment carries impact beyond the individual, protection must increase. That protection does not only guard against external opposition, it also guards against self-sabotage through delay. Sometimes the greatest threat to an assignment is not attack, but indecision. Michael addresses that by bringing matters to the surface. What was hidden becomes clear. What was postponed becomes present. His role as enforcer does not mean punishment follows. It means structure is applied. Think of it as a stabilizing force. When something valuable is at risk of drifting off course, boundaries are reinforced. Timelines are clarified. Expectations are made known. That is what is happening now. Heaven is not angry. It is precise. And Michael ensures that precision is felt. Another reason Michael appears at thresholds is because free will must be honored without compromising divine order. Heaven will not force obedience, but it will not allow disorder to stall purpose indefinitely. Michael stands at that intersection. He respects your choice while making the consequences of that choice unmistakably clear. His presence says, you are free to choose, but the season will not wait. You may notice that this message carries authority without hostility. That is intentional. Authority does not need volume. It needs clarity. Michael's tone is not emotional. It is resolve. That resolve communicates seriousness without chaos. It allows you to decide with understanding rather than fear. This is not about intimidation. It is about alignment. Archangel Michael also brings protection alongside enforcement. This is important. When decisions are required, vulnerability increases. Stepping forward always carries risk. Michael's role is to cover that risk. His involvement means that as you respond, protection surrounds you. Not from difficulty entirely, but from unnecessary harm. Alignment under his watch does not leave you exposed. It steadies you. There is also a reason Michael is associated with timing. He operates where delays have consequences. When patience has done its work, he signals movement. His presence indicates that waiting longer will not produce better outcomes. It will only complicate the path. This is why his message feels firm. Not because heaven is impatient, but because the season has shifted. If you are feeling a quiet resolve rising within you, that is not pressure. It is stabilization. Michael does not rush people into panic. He brings them into readiness. Readiness feels like clarity, not chaos. It feels like knowing that something must be addressed now, even if you do not yet know every detail. But knowing is enough to move forward. Understand this clearly. Archangel Michael's involvement means heaven is invested in this moment. You are not navigating this alone. Structure, protection, and authority are present. But authority requires response. Order requires alignment. This is the balance Michael maintains. He does not carry you forward without your consent, but he will not allow the moment to remain undefined. As we move into the next part, you will begin to recognize the signs that revealed how close you came to missing this alignment, and why those signs appeared the way they did. What felt subtle was actually precise. What felt confusing was actually protective. And what felt delay was never wasted. The signs were there long before this message reached you. They did not appear as dramatic warnings or unmistakable announcements. They appeared quietly, woven into ordinary moments, easy to dismiss if you were not paying close attention. This is how heaven often works. When something matters deeply, it is first revealed gently, allowing space for recognition rather than shock. The fact that you almost missed the call does not mean you failed. It means the signs were designed to test discernment, not obedience alone. One of the earliest signs was interruption. Plans that should have flowed easily may have stalled without explanation. Tasks that normally felt routine suddenly required more effort. Conversations may have circled without resolution. These interruptions were not inconveniences. They were pauses inserted intentionally. Heaven slows momentum when attention needs to shift. When speed continues unchecked, awareness diminishes. Interruption creates space to notice what would otherwise be ignored. Another sign was internal unrest without a clear cause. You may have felt unsettled, restless, or distracted, even during moments that should have felt calm. This was not anxiety rising on its own. It was awareness knocking from within. When something important approaches, the spirit often reacts before the mind understands why. That unease was not meant to disturb you. It was meant to alert you. Stillness was trying to get your attention. You may also have experienced an unusual sense of urgency paired with uncertainty. A feeling that something needed to be addressed, but you could not name what it was. This tension is common when timing dings. Heaven often signals urgency before clarity because response matters more than comprehension at first. If clarity always came first, obedience would be conditional. The discomfort you felt was an invitation to lean in rather than pull away. Another sign was distraction increasing around you. Not random distraction, but targeted. Things that normally would not pull your focus suddenly did. Your attention fragmented. Time slipped faster than expected. These are not merely habits of a busy life. They can be resistance masquerading as normalcy. When an assignment nears activation, distraction often intensifies to dilute focus. The enemy of alignment is rarely opposition. It is preoccupation. You may have also noticed repeated themes crossing your path. Certain words, ideas, or reminders appearing more than once. Not enough to feel obvious, but enough to feel familiar. Repetition is one of heaven's clearest indicators. When something repeats, it is asking to be noticed. When repetition is ignored, escalation follows. That escalation is what brought this message to you now. Emotional sensitivity can also be a sign. You may have felt more affected by things that normally would not move you. Memories resurfacing. Thoughts lingering longer than usual. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is awareness sharpening. Before clarity arrives, sensitivity often increases. It prepares you to receive what is coming with seriousness rather than indifference. You might also recognize moments of delay that seemed protective rather than frustrating. Situations where progress paused, but harm was avoided. Doors that did not open, but relief followed later. These were not setbacks. They were coverings. Protection often looks like delay when danger is unseen. Heaven shields before it explains. Those moments were not wasted time. They were safeguarding the assignment until the right moment. The most overlooked sign, however, is avoidance. If you felt an urge to postpone reflection, to stay busy, or to ignore the sense that something required attention, that itself was a signal. Avoidance does not mean unwillingness. It often means awareness is approaching something weighty. The instinct to delay is natural. Heaven responds to that instinct with patience first, then clarity. All of these signs point to one truth: the call was not sudden. It was gradual. It approached in layers, giving you time to notice, respond, and prepare. Missing it entirely would have required complete disengagement. The fact that you are here now means you did notice something, even if you did not know what to do with it at the time. This is important to understand because it removes self-condemnation. You did not ignore heaven recklessly. You encountered a moment that required discernment, and discernment grows through experience. The signs were designed to awaken, not accuse. Heaven corrects through awareness, not shame. Recognizing these signs now reframes the past few days. What felt confusing gains meaning. What felt scattered gains structure. What felt unresolved gains direction. Awareness brings alignment retroactively. That is grace at work. As you move forward, these signs will no longer feel random. You will recognize them earlier. Your sensitivity will sharpen. Your response will strengthen. This is part of the preparation process. Always missing the call does not disqualify you. It trains you. What matters now is not how close you came to missing it, but that you did not. You are here. You are listening. And that means the call was received before the window fully closed. Everything before this point has been preparation, explanation, and awareness. Everything after this point will be consequence, movement, and outcome. This is the moment of decision. Not a dramatic crossroads filled with noise, but a quiet, weighty pause where heaven waits for your response. The call has been made. The attempts have been explained. The window has been identified. Now comes the simplest and most difficult question of all. Will you open or will you walk away? Opening does not mean you suddenly understand everything. It does not require certainty, confidence, or a detailed plan. Opening means acknowledgement. It means you stop postponing what your spirit already recognizes as important. It means you choose alignment over avoidance. Walking away, on the other hand, rarely feels like a conscious rejection. More often, it feels like delay. Like telling yourself you will revisit this later, when things are clearer, calmer, or more convenient. That is why this moment matters so much. Delay and decision may feel similar, but they lead to very different outcomes. Heaven honors free will fully. You are not being forced into anything. But free will does not suspend timing. The season continues moving whether you engage or not. Opening this moment aligns you with movement. Walking away leaves you behind the current, requiring greater effort to re-enter later. This is not a threat. It is a reality of how alignment works. Flow favors response. You may feel tension here, and that tension is appropriate. Important decisions often arrive without dramatic signs but carry deep internal weight. This is not about choosing between good and bad. It is about choosing between now and later, between ease and strain, between alignment and adjustment. Heaven is not asking for perfection. It is asking for presence. Opening also means accepting responsibility. Not responsibility to perform, but responsibility to respond. Once awareness is given, neutrality disappears. Awareness demands direction. This is why the message has grown increasingly clear. Ambiguity has served its purpose. Now clarity stands in front of you, waiting for your answer. Walking away does not make you unloved or abandoned. Heaven's care does not disappear, but the expression of what was available now changes. Windows do not close angrily, they close quietly. The opportunity simply shifts form. What could have been gentle becomes demanding. What could have been direct becomes indirect. What could have been clear becomes complex. This is why heaven warns before shifting. It prefers alignment without unnecessary struggle. Opening, however, activates something immediately. Even without visible change, internal alignment begins. Confusion settles. Resistance loosens. Direction sharpens. You may not see the full picture, but you feel steadier within it. That steadiness is a sign of alignment returning. Heaven responds quickly to acknowledgement. This moment is not about pressure. It is about honesty. Be honest with yourself. You already know whether you have been postponing something that requires attention. You already sense whether this message connects to a deeper nudge you have been feeling. You do not need external confirmation. Recognition is already happening internally. Opening does not require words spoken aloud or dramatic gestures. It begins with willingness. A quiet yes. A conscious choice to stop resisting awareness. A decision to engage rather than evade. Heaven recognizes intention when it is sincere, and sincerity opens doors that effort alone cannot. If you are feeling drawn to continue listening, that itself is a form of opening. Engagement reflects readiness. Walking away usually feels like dismissal, not curiosity. The fact that you are here, still present, suggests your decision is already forming. Do not rush it, but do not ignore it either. Moments like this do not linger. What happens next depends on what you do with this awareness. Opening invites movement forward with support. Walking away invites adjustment later with resistance. Neither path removes your value, but one preserves momentum. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if this moment speaks to you. Lesson code 642 is now activated. As this moment of decision settles in your spirit, hear this clearly. Your response does not end with awareness. It multiplies through action. When you give right now, you are not funding content, you are releasing light into places still waiting for truth. I sense God saying that those who sow in moments of clarity will reap in seasons of movement. This is your prophetic response, not a casual gesture. I am inviting you personally to act while the window is still open. Use super thanks, membership, or PayPal. The donation link and QR code are already prepared for you in the description. Do it now, and let heaven mark your obedience with overflow. Responding now does not mean making a loud declaration or taking a dramatic external step. It means alignment happens internally first, and that internal shift immediately triggers change in the spiritual order surrounding you. Heaven responds to response. The moment you choose to engage instead of postpone, something recalibrates. What felt stalled begins to loosen. What felt heavy begins to redistribute its weight. This is not imagination. It is order being restored. One of the first changes that occurs when you respond now is the reestablishment of spiritual alignment. Alignment is not emotion, motivation, or excitement. It is position. When you are aligned, things stop pulling against each other. Your thoughts become less scattered. Decisions stop competing for attention. You may still face complexity, but it no longer feels chaotic. Order replaces confusion. This alone brings relief. because much of the fatigue you have experienced recently did not come from effort. It came from internal resistance. Responding now also restores flow. Flow is when movement produces progress instead of friction. When alignment is restored within the correct window, energy begins to circulate properly again. You may notice that tasks require less forcing. Conversations begin to resolve. Ideas that were blocked resurface naturally. This does not mean every obstacle disappears, but it does mean resistance decreases. You stop pushing uphill against timing, and timing begins to carry you forward. Another immediate result of responding now is the release of pressure that has been building quietly. Carrying awareness without action creates internal tension. It drains clarity and replaces it with unease. When you respond, that pressure lifts. Peace does not always arrive as joy. It often arrives as steadiness. You feel grounded instead of restless. That steadiness is one of the clearest confirmations that alignment hath been restored. Protection also shifts the moment you respond. Archangel Michael's involvement does not end at warding. His role extends into guarding movement once it begins. When you align, protection activates around the path you are stepping into. This does not mean challenges vanish, but it does mean unnecessary harm is restrained. Delayed obedience often leaves people exposed longer than movement does. The response shortens vulnerability. Responding now also preserves momentum. Momentum is fragile during transition periods. If it is not engaged, it dissipates. When you respond within the window, momentum carries forward into the next phase. When you delay, momentum resets, and restarting requires more effort. Heaven emphasized urgency because momentum was present. Responding now keeps you moving with it instead of chasing it later. Another important outcome is clarity regarding next steps. Heaven rarely reveals the entire path at once. But when response occurs, the next step becomes visible. Not the whole plan, just the next movement. This is intentional. Clarity follows obedience, not the other way around. Many wait for certainty before responding, but certainty is produced by response. When you move, the path illuminates. Responding now also affects timing in your favor. You preserve options that would otherwise narrow. Windows keep multiple paths available. Once they close, options consolidate. Heaven warns before this happens because it prefers choice over constraint. By responding now, you retain flexibility in how the assignment unfolds. That flexibility matters more than you may realize. There is also an internal confirmation that accompanies timely response. It is subtle but unmistakable. You stop second-guessing whether you waited too long. Regret dissolves before it can form. Instead of wondering what if, you feel settled in I move. That internal settlement is powerful. It stabilizes you for what comes next. This is why engagement matters in this moment. Response should not remain abstract. When you take small, tangible actions, you reinforce alignment. If this message confirms what you have been sensing, mark this moment. Like this video as a declaration that you are choosing response over delay. Share it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads. Leave a comment that reflects your decision to move forward. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now, not as routine, but as a conscious signal that you are participating, not observing. These actions are not about platforms. They are about acknowledgement. Responding now does not require perfection. Heaven does not wait for flawless execution. Imperfect obedience still opens the path. Direction can be refined once movement begins. What matters is willingness to step forward when prompted. Waiting for perfect readiness often results in missed timing. If you are feeling even a slight sense of relief as you listen, that is not coincidence. Relief follows decision, not outcome. Your spirit recognizes when resistance has ended. That recognition brings rest. Do not underestimate the importance of now. Now is where alignment lives. Later is where adjustment begins. Responding now keeps you in flow instead of recovery mode. Stay with this message, because what comes next explains the cost of continued delay, not with fear, but with truth. You need to hear it, because it completes your understanding of what is truly at stake. Delay is not evil, and hesitation does not make you unworthy. But delay does carry a cost, and that cost is often misunderstood. The cost of delay is not loss of love, loss of identity, or loss of value. The cost of delay is friction. It is the quiet replacement of ease with effort, clarity with complexity, and flow with resistance. Understanding this removes fear and replaces it with discernment. When awareness is given and response is postponed, the first cost is internal. You begin to carry knowledge without movement. That creates weight. Not visible weight, but mental and emotional heaviness. Decisions linger longer than they should. Energy drains faster than expected. Motivation fluctuates. This is not because you are doing something wrong, but because awareness is designed to lead somewhere. When it stays still, it becomes burdensome. Delay also alters timing. Timing is not just about when something happens, but how it happens. When alignment occurs within the right window, timing carries you. When alignment occurs after delay, timing must be rebuilt. This often looks like extra steps, repeated lessons, or slower progress. The destination may remain possible, but the route becomes longer. Heaven does not punish delay, it compensates for it. And compensation requires effort. Another cost of delay is narrowing of options. When a window is open, multiple paths remain available. When it closes, paths consolidate. Choice becomes limited. This is not because heaven withholds opportunity, but because seasons move forward. What belonged to one season cannot always be accessed in the next without adjustment. Delay trades flexibility for necessity. Delay can also impact confidence. When you hesitate past moments of clarity, self-trust weakens. You begin to question your discernment, not because it was wrong, but because it was unused. Over time, this can create a cycle where hesitation feeds doubt, and doubt feeds further hesitation. Heaven interrupts this cycle by calling attention to it early. That interruption is mercy. It is important to understand that delay often feels safe. It feels like protection from risk, responsibility, or exposure. But safety through delay is temporary. What is avoided eventually returns in another form, often with more complexity attached. Delay does not remove responsibility, it reschedules it. And rescheduled responsibility often arrives with added pressure. There is also a relational cost to delay. Assignments are rarely isolated. They affect people, environments, and outcomes beyond you. When you delay, others may be redirected. Opportunities may move around you instead of through you. This is not blame, it is reality. Divine order prioritizes completion over comfort. Heaven ensures movement continues, even if it must adjust participants. Delay can subtly reshape identity as well. Not who you are, but how you see yourself. Over time, postponed response can create a narrative of almost instead of moving. Almost ready. Almost aligned. Almost stepping forward. A narrative weakens momentum. Heaven invites response early to prevent identity from shrinking around hesitation. Another cost of delay is increased resistance. When alignment happens on time, resistance is minimal. When it happens late, resistance has had time to settle. Doubt strengthens. Fear grows familiar. Distraction becomes routine. None of these are permanent, but they must be dismantled before progress resumes. That dismantling takes energy. Delay also affects sensitivity. When awareness is repeatedly postponed, sensitivity dulls. Signals become harder to notice. Discernment requires use. Heaven speaks again and again, not to overwhelm, but to preserve sensitivity. This message arrived before sensitivity was lost. That matters more than you realize. What delay does not do is cancel your worth. Heaven does not withdraw affection or abandon people because they hesitated. Love remains constant. Guidance remains available. What changes is efficiency. Heaven becomes corrective instead of confirmatory. Erection becomes more structured. Movement becomes more deliberate. This is not punishment. It is order restoring itself. Understanding the cost of delay is not meant to induce regret. Regret focuses backward. Discernment focuses forward. You are hearing this now because movement is still possible with awareness intact. Delay has not finalized into loss, but it will, if awareness continues without response. This is the line between warning and adjustment. The truth is simple. Delay trades ease for effort. Alignment now preserves flow. Alignment later requires rebuilding. Neither removes purpose, but one preserves momentum. Heaven wants you moving with the season, not chasing it after it passes. This part of the message exists so you choose with understanding, not fear. No one is threatening you. No one is forcing you. You are simply being shown what delay costs so you can decide whether it is worth paying. In the next part, you will learn what begins to activate after this message when response is chosen, how clarity, momentum, and protection return in practical ways. This is not the end of the message. It is the turning point. Now reveals what begins to activate after this message once response replaces hesitation. Activation is not instant spectacle. It is sequence. Heaven moves in order, and when alignment is restored, that order begins to unfold step by step. Many expect immediate external change, but activation often starts internally, then restructures circumstances gradually. Understanding this sequence prevents impatience and helps you recognize progress when it begins quietly. The first stage of activation is internal stabilization. Once you respond, the inner tension you have been carrying begins to settle. Thoughts slow down. Emotional reactions become less volatile. You may not feel excited, but you feel steady. This steadiness is not neutrality, it is grounding. It means resistance has stopped competing with direction. Stability is always the first sign that activation has begun, because heaven secures the foundation before building upward. The second stage is clarity of focus. This does not mean you suddenly see the full picture of what lies ahead. Instead, you gain clarity about what matters next. Distractions lose urgency. Certain priorities rise naturally. You find yourself less pulled by noise and more directed by conviction. This is not forced discipline. It is alignment shaping attention. When focus sharpens without effort, activation is underway. Following clarity comes restoration of momentum. Momentum does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it appears as small forward movement that feels easier than before. Tasks that were avoided no longer feel heavy. Conversations that were delayed begin to happen. Decisions you postponed feel simpler to make. This is because resistance have been reduced. Momentum returns when direction and timing realign. Another part of the activation sequence is renewed sensitivity. You begin to notice subtle guidance again. Intuition sharpens. Discernment becomes clearer. Signals that once felt confusing now feel recognizable. The sensitivity is not emotional, it is perceptive. Heaven restores sensitivity so you can navigate the next phase without constant correction. When sensitivity returns, guidance becomes more efficient. Protection also adjusts during activation. Archangel Michael's role shifts from warning to guarding. As movement begins, protection becomes more active. This does not remove challenges, but it limits unnecessary interference. You may notice that certain obstacles dissolve before they escalate. Situations that could have caused harm lose momentum. Protection works quietly, preventing what you never have to confront. Another state of activation is recalibration of relationships and environments. This does not always mean separation, but it does mean adjustment. Some connections strengthen because they align with your direction. Others loosen because they no longer fit the season. This happens organically, not through force. Alignment naturally reorganizes surroundings. What supports movement remains. What resists it fades. Activation also brings renewed confidence, not confidence in yourself alone, but confidence in direction. You stop questioning whether you heard correctly. Doubt loses volume. You may still feel cautious, but you no longer feel paralyzed. Confidence rooted in alignment feels calm, not loud. It does not need validation. It simply moves forward. Another important aspect of activation is timing awareness. You become more attuned to when to act and when to wait. This balance is crucial. Activation does not mean constant action. It means responsive action. You move when prompted and pause when instructed. This prevents burnout and preserves effectiveness. Heaven values precision over speed. You may also notice an increase in responsibility during activation. This is not burden, it is trust. As alignment holds, heaven entrusts more. This could be insight, influence, or opportunity. Responsibility grows gradually, not suddenly. Each step prepares you for the next. Activation respects capacity. It is important to understand that activation does not eliminate effort. What it removes is unnecessary struggle. You still work, but you stop working against timing. Effort begins to produce results again. This is how you know activation is real, not by emotion, but by fruit. There may also be moments of testing after activation begins. Not to discourage you, but to strengthen alignment. These tests are lighter than before because direction is now established. They confirm readiness rather than expose weakness. Passing them builds confidence and stability. If at any point you feel uncertain again, return to awareness rather than panic. Activation does not mean perfection. It means progression. Heaven corrects gently once movement has started. What matters is that you continue responding rather than retreating. This sequence unfolds differently for each person, but the pattern remains consistent. Stabilization, clarity, fluidity, sensitivity, protection, adjustment, confidence, responsibility. Each stage builds on the previous one. None are skipped, and none are rushed. You are not expected to force activation. It begins naturally when response is sincere. Your role is not to control the process, but to remain present within it. Presence keeps alignment intact. As we move into the final part, you will receive assurance that this moment, though serious, is not meant to burden you. It is meant to secure you. What began as warning will end as confirmation, upliftment, and peace. Everything you have heard up to this point was never meant to burden you. It was meant to steady you. Heaven does not warn to overwhelm, it warns to protect. And now, as this message closes, you need to understand this clearly. You are still seen, you are still known, and you are still covered. This moment was serious, yes, but seriousness does not cancel compassion. Divine urgency does not remove divine care. In fact, it confirms it. If heaven did not care about your alignment, there would have been no attempts, no escalation, no warning, and no clarity. Silence would have followed instead. The very existence of this message is proof that you were not abandoned at the edge of the window. You were reached. Whatever decision you have made while listening, whether firm, forming, or still settling, know this: heaven responds to sincerity, not perfection. God does not require flawless execution. He honors honest response. What matters most is that you did not turn away from awareness. You stayed present. You listened. And presence itself is powerful. Archangel Michael's role did not end with warning. His presence now shifts into covering. The same authority that enforced clarity now reinforces protection. This means you are not stepping forward alone. Whatever unfolds next does so under guard. You are not exposed. You are not unshielded. You are not late to the point of abandonment. You are at the point of decision, and decision always carries grace when it is sincere. If you feel a sense of calm replacing tension right now, that is not accidental. A calm is assurance. It is heaven's way of telling you that you are not behind, not rejected, and not disqualified. You are aligned enough to hear, to understand, and to respond. That matters more than you realize. His message was never about threatening loss. It was about preserving alignment. It was about helping you move with the season instead of chasing it later. And even if some effort lies ahead, effort under alignment is lighter than ease under resistance. You have chosen awareness over avoidance, and that choice carries reward. And now release any lingering fear. Fear does not belong here. Fear clouds discernment. Clarity sharpens it. What you are stepping into may require courage, but courage grows when protection is known. And protection surrounds you now. Remember this: heaven measures movement, not speed. You are not required to rush. You are required to respond. One step taken in alignment outweighs 10 steps taken in hesitation. Trust the pace that unfolds naturally from this point forward. Timing will recalibrate as you move. As this message ends, allow assurance to settle deeply. You are not behind schedule. You are at a turning point. And turning points are sacred. They mark where paths realign and futures stabilize. You did not miss this moment. You met it. Carry this confidence with you. What was meant for you is still reachable because you chose to listen. And what unfolds next will confirm that choice in ways both subtle and unmistakable. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you receive this assurance. Blessing code 913 is now activated. As this message settles and assurance fills the space where urgency once stood, I need to speak this over you directly. What God has released through this word is not meant to stop here. It is meant to travel, to reach others who are still standing at their own threshold. When you give now, you are placing oil in the lamp so the light does not go out for those still searching. I hear the Lord saying that those who sow in moments of confirmation will reap in seasons of peace. This is not charity. It is obedience in motion. I am calling you personally to act while the blessing is still warm. Release your seed now through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal. The link and QR code are waiting for you in the description. Do it now, and let heaven seal your obedience with increase, protection, and peace.